We are convinced that having animals on a farm is the best way to regenerate soils, but only if managed correctly in a regenerative way, because if not, it can be our worst enemy. And the clearest example of this is overgrazing. In this video, I'm going to tell you exactly what overgrazing is. We all know what grazing is, having animals in the field eating grass, which is natural. Overgrazing takes place when animals spend an excessive number of days in the field, consuming the same grass repeatedly, beyond what is necessary for their sustenance. This is overgrazing, excessive grazing. Let us examine an instance where the consequence of overgrazing is readily apparent and clearly visible to the observer. This area here, where sheep have grazed rotationally with regenerative grazing, is growing food well, and they will be back in a few days. In this area here, we have not implemented this strategy. Here, the animals have been present permanently, in this case geese, not sheep like here. Due to logistical reasons of the farm, we have had them here for several months, grazing all day long. There are very few occasions. There are 8 geese, and this enclosure is a little large, but the dissimilarity in management is clearly visible. Here we have good food, alfalfa, other legumes, some grasses. Gradually, the soil becomes covered. They were here 3 weeks ago, and there is food once more, and in a couple of days they will return in. Although the food here is not good, we have an abundance of exposed soil that is mainly covered with mallows, which we have no interest in because geese and sheep do not like mallows. Our primary resource is the soil, but it does not offer the desired food that geese and sheep prefer. Therefore, in this case, even though it's a plant that is loosening the soil very well, it would be a weed that doesn't interest us. Take a look at the disparity. I think it's incredibly clear. In this particular place, we have the rocks, which immediately sound the alarm whenever something happens in their vicinity. An animal that also functions as the doorbell for the farm, serving as a reliable guardian. We are very happy to have geese. Besides, they lay some excellent eggs during certain periods of the year. And in this location, we can observe the sheep. During this particular week, they have made a visit to the hairdresser for grooming and styling purposes. It is a small assemblage of geese and sheep, but it is adequate to generate a substantial influence, depending on the manner in which they are managed and handled. Let us closely inspect this. Can you share what has transpired in this specific olive field with us, please? Since the geese have been here permanently grazing, eating the small plants that were coming out here, the ones they liked, which obviously are not the mallows, and they have eliminated them. They have taken them out, because as soon as they ate them, as soon as they pecked at them, they would eat them again, and now they are not there. They have disappeared. And what do we have left? Well, all the plants they don't like, which are these, and they've taken over because they haven't had competition, as the other plants are absent. Therefore, we are left with a field that is not very interesting, beautiful, but not very interesting, made up of plants that the animals do not eat, at least the ones we have here. There is one soil that is completely bare, which is a type of soil that we don't like at all. Fortunately, this has only taken place in a small segment of the plot. Let us examine how the other side is faring. And here in the region where we've managed the livestock regeneratively, moving them, they haven't grazed in the same area for over 3 days. Well, we observe that it appears different. There are a few mallows, but a very small number. Here there is alfalfa. There are even some grasses. There is still a considerable amount of work to be done with the soil in this area, but it is already slightly more covered with this layer of decomposing organic matter. Observe the contrast. Rotational management, in which the animals have stayed in this area for a maximum of 2-3 days feeding in the identical location, and then relocate to the other areas and come back after a few months. In the background, you can observe the continuous grazing management, which indicates that the animals have not moved from this location for a few months, demonstrating the long-term nature of their presence. Here is a much greater amount of food. We can provide sustenance to a larger number of animals in this location compared to here, so the practice of grazing that does not lead to overgrazing is also more economically feasible, because a greater quantity of food is produced, a larger amount of carbon is captured, and a higher number of animals can be nourished than in this particular area here. Therefore, as always, the issue is not what, but how. Animals work well to regenerate soil, but it depends on how they are managed, because if they are not managed properly, they can be, as I mentioned at the beginning, our worst enemy. You can see in some other video on our channel what exactly regenerative grazing is and how we manage the animals, so that the impacts are the ones we desire for our soils and for our environment.